G'day, folks, and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt, and in this episode, I'm joined by Angelo Valdivia,
Hey, paisanos.
Michael Goncalves,
Hey, team.
and Luke Henderson.
Hello there.
We've got a great episode lined up for you, all about a few classic games getting remasters, a thorny lawsuit that everybody saw coming, and some new classification rules for video games in Australia. But first, let's quickly talk about the Nintendo Museum. The Nintendo Museum is now open. We saw it in a direct a couple weeks ago. Well, a bit more than a couple weeks ago at this point. And we saw, a little bit of a brief overview, but people have now been to it. We kind of know what is there. And yeah, the store has a bunch of, unique merch, including collections for GameCube, Game Boy Advance, and even Virtual Boy. They did have gigantic cushions for each of the controllers, but they've had to put a limit on that because people were buying too many of them. So now you can only buy one of those when you go to the museum.
I'd like to see the person who's walking out the door with one Wii controller, one 64 controller, one Famicom controller, when they're the height of like a small child.
I kind of want an N64 controller, man. I could definitely protect myself from a fucking house burglar if one of those.
Yeah. But yeah, so that they have applied some item limits to avoid scalpers. There's a whole bunch of stuff there, like prototype consoles and controllers and stuff, some of which we've never actually seen publicly before, and I guess we won't see until we go to the museum because Nintendo has a strict no photos policy throughout the entire museum, which I think kind of sucks, but makes sense from a business perspective, but it still sucks.
The good thing they brought all those influencers over to film and take photos everywhere then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Good thing they're not trying to run a museum.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that I feel like in a museum, right? Like if you want, it's just like free social media advertising of like cool stuff, right? People go there, they take pictures of like a cool thing, and people are like, oh wow, I'd like to go there. But
not only that, like you're trying to preserve things that are like kept in pristine condition. Like you want to show people what that is, because obviously they're not going to have access to it. But Nintendo's like,
I don't think taking photos from inside a museum is going to stop anyone who actually wants to go to a museum. Like people are taking photos of the Mona Lisa. No one's going like, well, I've seen a photo of it. I don't want to go to the Louvre and check that out.
The Louvre, yeah, exactly. Like, so bizarre.
Yeah.
I suspect it could also just be one of those rules they've got in place for now, and it'll change over time because people will do everything they can to take photos. And
they'll just send out the lawyers in 10 years' time and just nuke a bunch of Instagram accounts.
Probably. Yeah, so the main entry space of the museum has a massive mural which has dozens of characters from across Nintendo's history. And we recreated it, the Vookcast team. It took pretty much an entire weekend to track down all of the artwork, but we did it.
It's pretty solid.
So, talking about Nintendo lawyers incoming.
Yeah. I mean, look, if any Nintendo lawyers are listening, this is for preservation and, educational purposes, which is covered under US copyright law, which Australia abides by, so...
I mean, we're definitely not running this podcast and living in fancy mansions off of this one mural that has been created. That's fair. But Ollie, please tell us about the games that aren't represented in this mural. It's in the article, but I just think this is kind of funny that there are notable omissions, such as characters from Advance Wars, Golden Sun.
Oh yeah, Advance Wars, Golden Sun, 1080, snowboarding, wave race, Mario sports titles, aside from golf and tennis. I mean, yeah.
I love that.
It's weird to have
1080 snowboarding is omitted from this. that's kind of funny.
I mean, they could have shaved off half of the Links and half of the Marios, and we would have had more space for other characters, but
that one chick from 1080 degrees snowboarding.
Well, it is weird, right, that they have such deep cuts and then things that people actually played are just not there.
Sorry, I can't let this slide, but Angelo called it 1080 degrees snowboarding, and that's no.
Is there not a
There's a degrees. No one call it 1080 degrees snowboarding.
Yeah, no. I mean,
yeah. I think with the murals, I think it looks great, especially. I'm a bit biased on the one we created, but the one in the actual museum, the photo that Famitsu shared, looks great. I just don't like that they use so many Mario and Link pictures. Just again, because there's so many characters they could have used.
It's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, like there's a Mario Kart Deluxe, and then in the right side there's a big red Mario square, and then one row down, two squares across, is another Mario Kart. It's like you didn't need to have Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8, so close to each other. You probably could have chosen that to be a little different. So, I just wish they'd done some other characters across the board. I mean, and let's face it, Fire Emblem has 900 characters, and there's only 2 Fire Emblem characters on this mural. So common math, and they're one's from the NES version of Fire Emblem. So yeah, it's weird.
What's interesting about the mural in the museum is that it seems to be that they're all on removable panels, so they could swap out any of this could already be out of date. The one that we created.
Don't tell me that.
We're not going to update it again, but yeah. I will say there are 2 images on this that aren't 100% perfectly correct. So if anybody can spot those, we're not going to tell you what they are, but if you can spot those, I'm not going to give you anything, but good for you.
I can see one already.
Send Nintendo's lawyers after us. I dare you. For that particular, not for the mural.
I want to know which one Michael thinks it is.
Pretty sure one of them is the R-Wing from Star Fox.
Nope.
I'm pretty sure that's not the same, unless my photo is wrong.
So
right in the middle, right next to Star Fox.
Yeah, the one you're talking about, the actual ship, it's the same thing, but the one they've used came from some random source I couldn't find.
So what you're saying is it's not the same.
It's only off. If you look at them side by side, it's only off by a few degrees. But it's the same thing with the Mario 64 jumping. That's not the same one. In the one from them, he's got one arm up and the other's sort of down there. And the one I have, its arm is down. Because again, I could not locate the one that they've got. So there's those 2 that are very close but not quite the same. But there's 2 that aren't from any sort of rendering because we couldn't find them.
Also, in the one that you've put in, we see more of Mario's boot.
There's also one down. Sorry, go.
As I say, that's because the one I did it at 3440 by 1440, so ultra wide, whereas theirs is completely square. So mine's slightly.
It looks cropped.
Because I wanted it for that resolution, that's why I did it. I've been doing it. It's slow going. I'm just making a big square one, so that'll go on my article eventually. So it'll be a proper square one. So I'm lining them up better that way.
I found one. That's all the same.
I can't tell who this is because I'm not zoomed in at all. But down the bottom right, the big Bowser to the left of that, the little white square is different. Missing one of the characters. There's 2 characters on our one, and there's only one on the Nintendo one.
Yeah, so it's the Agent 8 from the Splatoon 2 DLC, Octo Rising.
Oh, yes.
Definitely
know that.
Trust me,
Luke. Jeez.
No, the only reason I know is because I was trying to find half of these things, and I'm going I'm taking a picture that's this big normally, and I'm zooming it up, But yeah, so their one, it's basically just the guy character, but I could not find the guy on his own, so I just threw the girl character. So that's literally why it's different.
I'm very sure I found one, and I'll confirm it after the podcast.
Okay.
Oh, I think I found another one as well. I think there's more than 2. Just putting it out there.
There are 2 that are objectively the wrong artwork because there are some that will be the same artwork but composited differently or just a little bit different. But there are 2 that are just objectively the wrong artwork. So
one is Zelda instead of Link. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. There's one there, it's from Famicom Detective Club, the original artwork, and the only large art that I could find, I think was 300 pixels by 200 pixels or something, but the entire left side or the right side of the picture was from a magazine, so it was all torn and scratched. So there was, I had to take 4 different versions of that artwork that I could find and bring them together and try and match them, and just a lot of that sort of stuff to try and get this to to be something decent. So, yeah, I think I did a decent job.
You did.
Definitely did.
And again, there is the full list below the picture of like row by row, square by square, who's what character. So,
yeah.
Because I saw some of these, I'm like,
appears in the article 33 times. Just FYI.
But I saw one. It's the third row from the 3 Pikmin in purple. The third row down under Mario Golf. It's a green square with a purple head person. I saw it and I went, I have no idea who the hell that is. It's from a Japanese only game. It's like, oh well, that'd be why I don't know that character. So yeah, there's a few of those things as well.
Yeah. Anyway, you can't just walk into the museum. Unfortunately, there is a lottery system for tickets, which is a bit of a bummer. But hopefully, that's just an initial thing to prevent, it being swamped for.
Japan unfortunately does lotteries for a lot of things, so it's unlikely to be different. But the way the system works is you have 7 days after the lottery's drawn to buy the tickets you're offered, and if you don't, they just go into a general pool of availability. I did look to see if I could get some on the day that I was initially planning on going if I got in the lottery, and they're all sold out. So, and unfortunately, you can't access the store without going into the museum. So, I can't just go
that makes
and buy
sense.
things. Yeah, boo. You go to any gallery in Australia, and you can go to the store without going through the museum, going through the actual space. So,
True fact.
I get why.
Although I will say, having been to a couple of museums in Japan, it's very typical in Japan to not let you go to the gift shop without actually going through the museum. So, yeah. Let's quickly talk about a couple of classic games that are getting remastered. It's weird to call these classic because one of them is from the Vita. But
yeah, man, that was 10 years ago. It's classic.
I mean, it's a retro
classic.
console now, so
It is.
So yeah, Vita Classic Freedom Wars is coming to the Switch and basically everything else in a remastered version. The game was created by PlayStation's Japan studio, as well as a couple other studios. It was kind of a co-production, and published by Sony. The game is now being published by Bandai Namco, and it has updated visuals, game adjustments, and difficulty options, coming out January 10, 2025. I'm super excited for this because Freedom Wars is an absolute banger of a game. Basically, the story behind Freedom Wars is that in the 3DS Vita era, the Vita was not super popular in Japan, so Capcom decided to take the Monster Hunter series to 3DS instead, and Sony created something in-house that was kind of like Monster Hunter, but with its own little spin on it. And that's what Freedom Wars was, because Monster Hunter is very, very popular in Japan, so they wanted something that was very similar, could be played in a similar way. And yeah, it's a very, very fun game. And I thought that we were never, ever going to get another version of it because I don't think many people played it or cared about it.
So what you're saying is
did.
this was PlayStation's answer to we have Monster Hunter at home.
Pretty much,
funny
yeah.
Because Monster Hunter started on PlayStation anyway.
Yeah. But it
was
really took on life.
It was enormous on PSP. It was everywhere
Yeah.
on PSPs, and they used to
Yeah,
play with
totally.
a claw grip, where they had to put their fingers on the face buttons like this and actually use the camera on the buttons because they only had one stick.
But yeah, I mean, Monster Hunter's always been a handheld thing, and handheld games up until World sold way, way better than home console versions. So
I mean,
it makes sense. That,
Monster Hunter Try on the Wii did
I was going to
okay,
say
but
Try
then
sold well.
the Try version
Yeah.
on 3DS
but
sold
not as well as the
phenomenally better.
3DS version. Yeah. But yeah, and the other one is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2. So this was hinted at a statue at San Diego Comic-Con, and then leaked subsequently, and then shown off properly shortly after that. It has a new remastered mode and the original mode, so you can switch back to the original visuals and stuff at any time. It has new additions like interactive lore map, modern controls, and a photo mode. Luke has noted here that Blood Omen 2 was the only entry in the series on a Nintendo console, and that released on the GameCube. And we may as well go to the third remastered one as well, just get them all out of the way, and then we can have a quick discussion about them. Luna, the Luna trilogy. Is it a trilogy?
No, it's only 2 games.
It's a duology. Yeah. So Luna, which was first released on the Sega CD, is marking its debut onto non-Sega hardware. So it has updated graphics, right? Widescreen support. Like Legacy of Kain, you can switch between the new and the old graphics at any time, but it also has modern quality of life updates, the option to speed up battles, all of that stuff as well. It looks a little bit more like a very faithful remake than a remaster, but either way, it's very, very cool that such a niche game that has become a bit of a cult classic since its release is getting a release onto new consoles. I think that's coming to everything as well, so yeah. Of the 3, which is the most interesting to each of you? I'm curious to know. Michael, tell us.
I was like, no one gives any shits. Of the 3, probably Luna for me. I think it looks really nice. I think the new graphical update is actually pretty faithful and looks very, very cool. Pretty sure those FMVs have some definite AI signs on them though, but is what it is.
It is a bit unfortunate, yeah.
But yeah, no, it looks really cool. I think it's, I don't know. When you look at stuff like this, like I don't know how much this is actually going to sell, but it's neat they're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that I think everybody knows that it's not going to sell like super well, right? Like the fact that we are still getting these collections that we know aren't going to be super popular and massive hits is a good thing ultimately. Yeah. But yeah, Angelo, Freedom Wars, Legacy of Kain, Luna.
I mean, like,
any of them interest you?
I bought Freedom Wars on the Vita, I played it for like an hour, was like, this is not Monster Hunter, and then bounced so hard out of it and kind of regretted the purchase. And the other two, like, I've seen Legacy of Kain, never touched it in my life, and then Luna Remastered I've never seen before. It looks kind of cool because it's, you know, the retro HD kind of thing, but like there are so many of those, and ones in my opinion that look better, so like none of these games are really for me at all, so soz.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, I saw a lot of people, like when Legacy of Kain was announced, like people like losing their shit over it, and I was like, I've barely even fucking heard of this thing. Like, who is excited for Legacy of Kain? What
like,
even is Legacy
of Kain?
Definitely
screenshots of it in magazines and people in
totally
excited for it, but that was
the
I
ads.
Never played it.
The ads are so vivid in my memory. They're like the full page magazine ads, just like they were everywhere. But I feel like every game has its like rabid fan base. Like I was the same when Croc was announced, like the remaster. I was like, don't get me wrong, like Croc's, you know, enjoyable, but like I was like, really? Everyone's just like losing their shit over this?
Yeah. I feel like my whole Twitter feed was just losing it at Legacy of Kain, and I was like, I barely even know what this is. Like, this could be like
I think that's because for years and years and years
chess
and
game
years,
for all I know.
you know, people say, "Oh, what game would you like to see come back?" A lot of people bring up Legacy of Kain because it sort of had this like big thing on the PS1, PS2 era, and then just vanished. I think that's why it sort of like has that little fan base that's really happy for it. I will say though, the only thing that concerns me about this is it's done by Aspire. And Aspire did the Tomb Raider collection earlier in the year. That's just coming out physically now, like JB. And that's a fine update to it. They had some weird issues, but it's still fine. But they also did Bounty Hunter earlier in the year as well. And then they did the Battlefront collection. And they, you know, they sort of go between really good updates to games and really bad updates to games. And there's no sort of in between on them. So the fact that these guys are doing this one again doesn't make me think it's gonna be bad, but
Aspire is very much a studio where the quality of the output very much depends on the budget that they were given. And like that's not true of every studio, because like every studio, like some studios can like make it work on like a shoestring budget. They might pare it back a little bit. But like I think with Aspire, like you can tell when something has been allocated the lower budget. Because it comes out being a bit rough.
Could also be time as well, just how much time they have to work on it.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah. Luke, what about you? Which one of the 3 is the most interesting to you?
3, just Legacy of Kain, because I have played the original on PS1 and I have played the GameCube one. So I have that connection with it. But Freedom Wars, I look at it and I go, it just looks like another JRPG, anime protagonist bullshit.
Another,
I'm like,
dystopian teenagers with like massive laser guns and maybe some robots. Like, okay, there's like a dime a dozen at this point.
And I'll say
Always like inject that shit into my fucking veins.
Honestly, yeah. So like, here's the thing, right? Is that like, Freedom Wars came out on the Vita, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then like the people who made Freedom Wars went on to make the God Eater series for Bandai Namco, and the God Eater series is literally just the exact same thing as Freedom Wars. Like it's just more Freedom Wars. And yeah, I fucking love that anime bullshit. Like it's dumb and like it makes absolutely no sense, and it's like often unappealing to look at. But I mean, it's my jam,
I was just looking at their list of games that they've made. They just released Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream, which just came out like 2 days ago. It's like, oh, another Sword Art Online game. Lovely. The last game they made before this was Dragon Ball The Breakers, which was that basically Dead by Daylight Dragon Ball game that nobody wanted and nobody played.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Okay.
I remember the name. I don't remember it being a Dead by Daylight game.
No, it's essentially your NPCs from the Dragon Ball world, and then you have to like one player's like Cell or Frieza or whatever, and
yeah. Dragon Ball Z asymmetric multiplayer game. Today I learned.
So like the thing is, like I was supposed to review Dragon Ball The Breakers for Vookcast. The problem is that it's both region-based and platform-locked multiplayer, and I could literally never even get a single game to load.
Yeah.
I could do the tutorial, but that was it. And yeah, I don't think it's recovered since then.
I think like developers who have had the opportunity to work on the Dragon Ball license have really slept on the opportunity to take the best side sort of mission or side quest, side episode, whatever you want to call it, of all time, and just do a huge mini game based on the episode where Goku and Piccolo get their driver's license. If there was a mini game of that, like I would actually just buy that and probably just play that for like a good 6 months straight.
All right, guys, I'm gonna say it. I've never watched Dragon Ball, so.
Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball?
Yeah, those are two different things. What are they? Which one haven't you seen, Michael? Either?
Any of them.
Okay. That's the thing. Like Dragon Ball, I feel like it's too hard to kind of get into now. It's kind of like One Piece, right? It's kind of hard to just kind of start when you're at this age with responsibilities.
I will say this. I was because I was covering it for my site, and every time they did, here's another 11 characters for the roster. One of the updates came out, and there's like 3 female fighters, and I went, who the hell are these people? So I went looking, and they're from a different dimension. I'm like, okay, no.
Yeah, now we're just
why the fuck does Dragon Ball need characters from other dimensions now?
It's because everything has multiverses now. That's why it's multiverses.
This
I mean,
like the 90s, but
yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that like the alternate dimensions thing? It was a big thing in Dragon Ball Super. You're all going to be subjected to this because I've watched all of it. So it was a big thing in Dragon Ball Super where everybody fought to like save their universe from destruction. And basically that entire thing exists to like explain the continuity errors with all of the movies that they created, because they were like movies that were like, oh well, this is canon, but it just doesn't fit anywhere within the series. So then they're like, oh yeah, alternate universes, that's how we did it.
But that's not a Dragon Ball problem, that's an anime problem. They always have movies that are
and they fixed
canon. Did they fix it?
Now it's all canon.
Is it fixed?
They didn't fix a problem. They created a problem by introducing random characters. My point,
and they fixed it.
my point with all this is that with Dimps especially, that when they're making games like this, I don't care so much because again, I coming back to Freedom Wars, I'm no longer a teenager, so anytime there's a game and it's like, or it's an anime and it's like a teenager, oh, life's so hard because this. Shut the fuck up, move the hell on. I don't care. I'm old.
Luke, official old man status has been attained.
I was going to say, you heard it here first, everyone. Breaking: Luke is not a teenager.
That's it. I don't think I ever was at one point. But my thing is, like, especially when it's like they always write these characters to be the same. It's like, oh, I'm a teenager.
It's an archetype.
And I get why. I get aspects of it, but it's in Japan especially, it's the same every time.
But that's
Like,
that's anime. It's always teenagers. It's
Yeah.
always teenagers.
That's the thing. I
Teenagers
can't
and
connect to
robots.
that anymore. I don't gel with that vibe. And same thing too.
No.
In anime, every anime, you watch a TV show, you'll have characters talking all the time. In anime, it's one character at a time. They'll all say something, and then somebody says something, and then moves to the next person, and the next person, and the next. And they have these things they just stick to. And yeah, when it comes to games from Japan, I'm kind of over all that now because I don't have time. I don't know.
Mate, if I stopped playing games that had like angsty teens and from Japan, I would literally never play another game in my life. That's all I play.
I think the takeaway is that Luke needs conversations to be updated. We need to have everyone talking at the same time.
I mean, this podcast, anyone tries to make a point, basically.
Anyway, so these are all coming out at some point. I don't know.
Legacy of Kain is December, so I think it's like the 10th or the 11th is the date I've seen. It's not confirmed yet, but yeah, Freedom Wars is January, and then Luna's sometime by the end of March is what I've seen. But again, they've not confirmed that.
Yeah.
They've just said like, early 2025. So
Switch 2 release, baby. Let's go.
Switch 2 release is leading a
launch
Sega CD game.
Alrighty, let's talk about the Pal World lawsuit. So Nintendo's filed a lawsuit in Tokyo against Pocket Pair, which is the developer of Pal World. For those who don't know, Pal World is a survival crafting game / creature catcher. So you catch little monsters and then you force them to work in slave factories, basically. The reason for the lawsuit is intellectual property rights. It's filed under a patent application, and not copyright. So we don't know exactly what patents Nintendo is saying that Pocket Pair breached, but just a little bit of speculation here.
I thought someone did find the patent. Did I?
No, people have speculated, but it's not public information.
Right.
So we don't know. It's just whatever either Nintendo or Pocket Pair says, and neither have said anything. I think the most likely scenario here is that Nintendo wanted to punish Pocket Pair for having designs that were a little too similar to Pokemon, and didn't feel like it had a strong enough case in copyright law, so went for patent law instead, because Nintendo holds thousands and thousands of patents. So yeah,
the speculation one that
Pocket
I heard about for the patent was that the patent was actually filed after the game Power was even released.
Okay, so kind of.
Yeah, go.
That's
basically
what I've seen as well.
Japan has this system where basically, if you have a patent and then you have if you have a patent that has already been applied for, and then you have a system that is considered ancillary to that, so something that adds on to that can also be patented, you can amend that to your previous application. And the amendments are what people are pointing to as being after Power World released. So yeah, again, we don't know that that's what it is. We can't really speculate too much about what it could be, because it could be any number of things. But yeah, Pocket Pair put out a statement saying that they were disappointed by it. They say they don't know what the patents they're accused of infringing upon are, which is apparently somewhat common in Japan. And they could have this stupid thing that where we have to ensure that indie game developers are not hindered or discouraged from pursuing their creative ideas, which is just the most bullshit statement, because Pocket Pair presenting itself as the little indie underdog, they made hundreds of millions of dollars from Power World. Let's not pretend that.
And they're not three guys in a tiny studio apartment doing this either.
No, they have 80 employees at this point. So yeah,
the moment your employee count hits double digits, I think you're no longer classed as independent.
So yeah, Pocket Pair has been accused of plagiarism in the past. Obviously, nothing that has come to court previously. But a lot of their games just look a lot like other games, and the CEO of Pocket Pair has said in the past that he doesn't think creativity is really for him, which is not a great look when you're being sued for infringement. But Yeah, it's also worth noting that the CEO used to work at Nintendo. So a lot of people have speculated that this might be a case of like a trade secret kind of thing where because he worked at Nintendo, he's privy to particular details about patents and stuff, and that could be the result of what has happened here. As I said, the most likely scenario is just that Nintendo wanted to punish them for having designs that looked a little too much like Pokemon, and this was the easiest route to do that.
I will say
realistically, yeah, go on.
The one thing I've loved that is like everyone's come out, oh, if this was such an issue, Nintendo would have sued them, months ago. And it's like you do realize how laws work. You can't just see something and immediately apply a lawsuit. You can't just go lawsuit. It's not like parkour where you just yell parkour and you're doing parkour. So this whole thing, like, it's like The Office, the whole thing where they're running around just yelling parkour and not really doing it. So it's like whenever I saw people make this comment, yeah, it's like lawsuits don't work that way. You can't just slap it down and go, this is a lawsuit. It's like you have to provide proof when you submit the claim. So that takes time.
So here's the thing, right?
It's like time.
If there was a clear case of copyright infringement, Nintendo could have filed day one, like as soon as Palworld released.
Even before Palworld.
They don't have that because it's like copyright is really, really difficult to actually litigate through, because like you can't really copyright the concept of something, only the execution of it. And like, yeah, while a lot of the PALs in Palworld look similar to Pokemon, like, can you say like, well, this looks like a sheep, Pokemon has a sheep, therefore copyright? Like, you can't copyright the idea of a cute looking sheep.
I think we're getting also mixed up here. So the lawsuit doesn't center around copyright law; it centers around patent law. So the actual lawsuit, the claim is that Pocket Pair, whatever the company's called, is actually infringing upon patent filings rather than copyright specifically. So it's not about this creature looks like this creature. It's more like the game mechanics are too similar to whatever Nintendo has decided is a mechanic that they have applied to their games. And the reason why I'm being ambiguous with that is because apparently I've listened to a few podcasts that discuss this, and they've had like actual patent lawyers in to sort of discuss this, is that patent law is so incredibly nebulous, and it's a system that was sort of, the laws haven't been updated since something like, I want to say like the 60s or something, and hasn't accounted for computer code, which everything is run off of these days, and it is incredibly difficult to be patenting computer code because it is all very, very conceptual. There are so many ways to go about completing the same objective or completing the same task, etc. And you've got different coding languages, etc., and that forth. So yeah, and the biggest concern about this is that the lawsuit is being filed in Japan, and with Japanese patent law, Nintendo has a very, very strong case. Whether or not it's morally correct or whatever, like they just generally, when they file patent infringement, they typically win, whereas in America it's less likely that they would win. So the outcome of this doesn't look particularly great, and the general sort of opinion among a lot of lawyers and things is that if Nintendo wins this patent infringement, then they may come back and clean up with the copyright infringement if they do well with this. So it doesn't look great for Palworld at this point. Ultimately, we do have to wait and see, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do misunderstand how software patents work, especially when it comes to game mechanics and stuff, because it's not like the concept specifically of the game mechanic, right? Like, one of the things that people point to a lot is the loading mini games. Other developers did do loading mini games while Namco held the patent for that, and that's because they did it in a different way. So it's really the execution of how you're doing it. Now the problem is that a lot of these are just very, very vague, right? It's Nintendo tends to be a little bit more specific with its patents, but that doesn't mean that some aren't vague. But if you actually look at the patents, they lay out the specific algorithm that they use to detect and the world state and all of that kind of stuff. And that process of processing it, of calculating how they're implementing those mechanics is what's patented. The problem is that like you can accidentally fall afoul of that because like obviously Nintendo, with all of the talent that it has behind it, is going to do things in the most efficient and most logical way possible. But like most software companies, including Sony and Microsoft and all of that, they have just as many software patents as Nintendo does. And like generally in the games industry, if you can think of something, it's been patented in some way. So it's kind of an unspoken rule that you just don't sue over software patents, because it just kind of creates a headache for everyone. So when it does happen, it's kind of a big deal. That said, I think this is probably just going to settle out of court. I think Pocket Pair is probably just going to pay a few $1 million to Nintendo to license whatever patents they're apparently infringing on, and then that'll be that. I don't think this is going to be a big, lengthy, drawn-out trial, because I think Pocket Pair knows that it can't afford that, ultimately.
I would just say, I think patenting a gameplay mechanic is bullshit, and everyone can get fucked, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Well, so that's what a lot of like tech lawyers and things are sort of saying is like, patenting software or code is such a nebulous and disadvantageous thing to do for basically just innovation in general, because you're basically patenting an idea. It's not like you're putting copyright on art or something like that, where there is actual influence, there is cultural appropriation, etc., anything like that. Like it is literally a function. It's not like I guess with like regular like real life invention and things like a combustion engine or something like that. Like you can, like a company can patent like a combustion engine, but really it's just their method of creating the combustion engine. If someone else goes out and invents a completely different way to create a combustion engine, then they could potentially patent that, so long as it doesn't infringe upon the process that the original company had done. So it's the same thing with code, right? Because there are a million different languages and different ways that you can code things and still have the same outcome. So it's just like it is such a headache in that regard. And the problem is like a lot of these like patent laws and stuff, they just don't account for modern technologies and code and stuff like that, and they're trying to apply old school reasosoning and law definitions to a completely like innovative space, which is constantly changing all the time. But going to what you were saying, Ollie, about like order of logic and things like that in computer code, like I've got like this Justia patents page open, and again, like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about most of the time, so I take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But like I'm reading through the top patent that I have here, that's listed to so on this page that's titled "Patents assigned to Nintendo Co. Limited." It was filed on March 13, 2023. It was dated on October 1, so it's this week. And like it's just so full of jargon and so hard to even understand, like just in text. Everyone's going to tune out at this point, and that's fine. But I'm just going to basically illustrate like how nonsensical all of this is. The title is "Non-transitory computer-readable storage medium having information processing programs stored therein, information processing apparatus, information processing system, and information processing method for playing a game having a predetermined element selected therein." That's the title.
Yeah.
Then the abstract.
This is some straight bullshit. Jesus Christ.
Right? I know, and here's the abstract. When a first input is performed in a predetermined scene, options including elements available in a predetermined game are presented. An element to be used in the predetermined game is determined on the basis of an operation input by a user. In response to a second input, the predetermined game using the determined element is executed. Meanwhile, at a predetermined timing before the predetermined game is started, an element to be used in the predetermined game is automatically determined. When a third input is performed in the predetermined scene, the predetermined game is executed using the automatically determined element. After the predetermined game is ended, a first reward is given to the user of the element, if the element used in the predetermined game is the element determined on the basis of the operation input by the user, and a second reward is given if the element is the automatically determined element.
Oh my god, please, Luke, in post, can you do a slow zoom on your face during that entire thing? Because that was fucking incredible. You just, like, your face was pure death.
That's what I mean. Like, it's so full of jargon. It's so nebulous. Like, an indie developer's not going to go through patents and try to make sense of any of this kind of stuff. Like, it it's not fit for that. It only benefits someone like Nintendo, who has the army of lawyers who fluently speak legalese and maybe some tech terminology as well.
Totally.
To really like benefit from this. It doesn't benefit anyone outside of those really, really big companies. And like no one else that we know of, you know, publicly is like going after smaller game developers with patent lawsuits or anything like that, right? Like,
and it really does.
Sony aren't technically doing this.
It really does stifle like further innovation. I think the other big example people always bring up is the Shadow of Mordor series with the Nemesis system, which people love, and everyone was asking. Totally rules.
Everyone was like,
totally is awesome.
Incorporated in another game, and
totally, and then they just have done it. They made those 2 games, and then that's it.
Yeah,
and a version of it's coming into the Wonder Woman game they're making, so it will be back.
We'll see if that game comes out.
We'll see.
But it's similar to like Bayonetta. Like I think Bayonetta had like loading screens where you could practice combos and stuff like that, and that function was patented. It wasn't available in other games, not because no one was smart enough to put it in their games. It's because that was patented, and I think like the patent went up or something in like 2016 or 2017.
That's so interesting. I love the idea of a loading screen patent, because like we're making those patents useless now, because like loading screens are almost completely gone.
Yeah, and like companies like this, like Nintendo has thousands upon thousands of patents. Like that was just the most recent one. Like there are others that were granted, it's like 7 or 8 others that were granted in the last 2 months or something. And like there are so many that Nintendo is just constantly filing, and they're not going after anyone else for them that we know of. They're just making an example.
Yeah, so this is the thing. This is the thing that like I've been speaking to a copyright and patent lawyer in Japan, who like works with this kind of stuff every day. And basically like, the reason, I mean, there are 2 reasons why Nintendo does this and why all companies do this. Because as I said, like PlayStation Studios has like thousands of patents as well, and Microsoft has probably millions at this point across its whole company portfolio. And like the reason, in part, is because, you know, when they want to sue somebody, they can, because a lot of these patents are just like such basic and such nebulous stuff that it can be interpreted in such a way that basically any game is breaching a number of patents at any given time. But the other reason is that like if you hold those patents, other people can't apply for those patents. So this is something that like software in particular, because the law hasn't caught up to prevent this kind of stuff from happening, software in particular is susceptible to people applying for patents and then suing for that. So Nintendo in particular tends to patent just about everything it does, but rarely goes after actual developers for it. Because, as I said, basically every game on the planet is probably in breach of some sort of Nintendo patent. It's only when Nintendo actually wants to punish somebody for something,
if we're being honest,
that they go after it.
Pocket Pair they could have done something completely egregious, like not just like some minute, teeny tiny little thing that only 2% of the player base will ever find, but it could be a core aspect of the game, and it's a direct rip-off of something Nintendo have done for years, right? It could be what it is. We don't know. All we know is that Nintendo have said, hey, we think you've done this, and we're going to fight you for it in court. And
also, the speculation is that Nintendo's going after them for the method of catching Pokemon. Oh, sorry, whatever the PALs, whatever. I haven't played the game. Catching the creatures. Because I'm getting this from the Games Industry Biz article that went up, about a week ago. And they're saying here, based on information, it's not overly speculative to assume Nintendo filed US App 3 and US App 4 with the intention of targeting Power World. The first independent claim of US App 3 currently recites, again going back to the jargon, a non-transitory computer-readable storage medium having stored therein a game program that, when executed by a computer of an information processing apparatus, causes the computer to perform operations comprising, based on a received direction input, determining an aiming direction in a virtual space, and in a first-person mode, causing a player to launch in the aiming direction a catching item for catching the field character disposed on a field in the virtual space based on an operation input. And when the catching item launched hits the field character, performing successful catch determination relating to whether or not the catching is successful. And when the result of the successful catch determination is positive, setting the field character hit by the catching item in a player's possession. And then it just kind of goes on, and there are other ones.
If you want to understand why capitalism is awful, Exhibit A.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, it seems that's just part of the speculation, is that they're speculating it's the way
That's
that you
crazy.
catch creatures, which again, like we've had, like even cassette tapes had something similar, right? Instead of like throwing a ball at them, like you're recording them onto a cassette. So ultimately, like you're achieving the same thing, but like the code is like kind of similar, right? In that regard.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is that like hundreds of other, like there's probably every single creature catching game on the planet is in breach of some kind of patent held by Nintendo or the Pokemon Company. And none of those are getting sued. All of those, like Cassette Beast, is regularly promoted by Nintendo. Other games have been as well that have similar mechanics. So
the difference is that Cassette Beast hasn't made $1 billion. That's the difference. So it's and that's why it's going to be tricky, right? And like I said before, like Nintendo seems to do very well with patent lawsuits in Japan, which is why they filed it there. So
also both companies are Japanese, which probably helps.
Yeah,
sure.
But I mean, as I said, like there's probably not going to be some like drawn out lawsuit. It will almost certainly just be settled out of court. Like there's next to no chance that this is going to end up at trial. Because companies in litigation have a legal obligation to have good faith negotiations beforehand, and Pocket Pair is not going to fight this. Like they're just going to pay X amount of money that Nintendo wants, and that'll be that. So yeah, it's the fact that it was filed in Japan is better for Nintendo. But like we also don't really want a lot of US precedent set for software patents, so it's good that it's happening in Japan and not in the US, because
but yeah, it is important.
Happening in the
Japan
US
doesn't really...
yet.
It's just important to note for people who want to talk about this, like it is patent law, not copyright law. It has nothing to do with the fact that like Power World is an explicit rip-off of Pokemon by design, like by visual design. Those characters look a lot like Pokemon. It's not actually that.
Yeah.
Man, I can't make my Pokemon hold a minigun, so...
It might be the reason they're suing, but it's not the method through which they're suing, is what I'm saying, right? Is that like, it could be that they don't like that, but don't have a strong claim to copyright, so they're going another method.
Well, if that does go to court, then like Nintendo will have stronger confidence about taking them down for copyright law after, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, as I said, it will probably not hit trial, and then we'll all forget about software patents for like another 5 years, and then somebody else will do something absolutely fucking stupid with them, and we'll be discussing this again.
Anyway, that was 4 grown men who are not lawyers talking about law. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. We'll be talking more about law in a little bit. But first, we'll just go quickly over the new Nintendo Switch Online editions. So there were 4 SNES games added. I do not have this article open. And that is Battletoads, Double Dragon, Big Run, Cosmo Gang the Puzzle, and Kunio-kun no Dodgeball Daiozen in Shugo Dodgeball, Kunio-kun Dodgeball, basically. And then on the Game Boy Advance, we got 2 F-Zero games, which was F-Zero GP Legend and F-Zero Climax, which was never released outside of Japan. GP Legend also has all of the e-reader content, which is a nice addition as well. But yeah, it's surprising to see that they're still like finding games to release on Nintendo, like Super Nintendo in particular, because it feels like most of the big ones are there, but they're still going.
I just think it's hilarious that we got one from the Super Famicom, that when it was brought to the West was basically remade as Pac-Man, a Pac-Man game. So Namco owned that one. So we got the non-Namco version of the game, which is a way for Nintendo to not have to worry about dealing with Namco and getting, agreements and all that in place. So I think that's quite funny. But yeah, I think it's fine that we got more games, but it's like if we're now giving more Japanese exclusive or games full of Japanese text in these releases, maybe time to think about doing something else, because not many people read Japanese. So
I don't know, man. I can read Cosmo Gang the Puzzle pretty well. Also, I love that title.
The important thing is,
I love that title, Cosmo Gang. That is a great name.
Yeah. Most of these things have a heavier focus on gameplay rather than tech. So, like, they're not going to bring like JRPGs over that have like hundreds and hundreds of, dialogue boxes and stuff. But yeah,
with these two F-Zeros, is that every F-Zero on Switch bar GX?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and one more with F-Zero 99.
Yeah, well, it's been like every F-Zero game ever, except the one everyone actually wants.
There's two missing. There's GX and then FX, the arcade one.
FX? The what one, sorry?
The arcade version. GX is the GameCube version. AX. Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was.
I mean, they're literally the same game.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more F-Zero game to go.
Yeah, I just think it's quite funny that
put it on Nintendo.
The last game we got. Well, sorry. Legend didn't release here, did it, Ollie? We didn't get GP Legend in Australia.
No, we didn't.
No.
So
the last game we got was GameCube.
Games.
But the last game that released outside of Japan was GP Legend, and then the next game in the series was F-Zero 99.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if when the Switch 2 gets revealed and they have their like super sick DLSS similar functionality in the console, right? Like they blow it out with like 120 frames per second on like an OLED TV or whatever, and they're like, and we're gonna demonstrate it with the like next installment in the F-Zero series, and like you just play like they just put that on and it's like 120 per second. Like everyone would lose their damn minds.
I'd be amazed if Switch 2 supported HDR, let alone 120 FPS.
Yeah, that's true. But we can dream. That would be amazing.
Yeah. I'm happy that there's more games. I'm always happy with more games, but
yeah. When Switch 2 gets announced, this podcast is going to be such a shit show. It's going to be incredible. I cannot wait. I genuinely cannot wait.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's talk about more things that we're not qualified to talk about. So the Australian government has announced some classification changes to how it handles loot boxes and gambling. These are actually in effect now. They announced them in like March last year, and then had some public consultation. But now they're actually in effect, and it's kind of stupid.
Not kind of stupid.
So games
it's completely stupid.
Yeah, it's so backwards.
Yeah, games with loot boxes, so things that you spend actual money on, and then you open a random box and get a random item out of it. They're now going to be rated M, so that's recommended for people 15, but there's no legal obligation to sell it to only people over 15. Games with simulated gambling are now going to be rated R 18 plus restricted, so they cannot legally be sold to anybody under the age of 18. And simulated gambling in this is very broad, but basically any game that has anything that remotely looks like gambling. If it's a slot machine, if it's like, in Star Wars Outlaws, you bet on races or like enter a poker game or.
Well, I don't think that counts because Sabak is not a real game. So I think
it doesn't matter. It's still gambling. You're still wagering money. It's explicitly counted. So yeah, anything that even remotely resembles simulated gambling is now going to be rated R18+. So that means that games like Pokemon Red and Blue that had a game corner in them where you could play the slots, if they were being rated for the first time now, would be rated R18+ restricted, because they do have those simulated gambling elements.
Mario 64 on the DS says blackjack and all that.
Yeah, and then other games like Clubhouse Games where there's like poker and stuff like that.
Many Japanese games like include slots as just like a luck system and stuff. They love that stuff. Like, does that mean that like potentially Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Rebirth or whatever is bad because it has that lottery? No, not the lottery. It has that. What's the word I'm looking for?
Roulette.
Yeah, it has the roulette system in it, like to get like power ups etc., etc. Like you're not waging money.
So you're not waging money, and that's the thing, is that like simulated gambling is like quite a broad term, but it is defined in a way that it does have to simulate wagering money or a money equivalent and getting potential rewards for that. Notably, this is something that I haven't seen a lot of people touch on. Games are grandfathered in, with the exception that if they get substantial updates that would require them to be re-rated, they will be re-rated under this new schema. Excuse me. So, something like Pokemon Go currently is rated G, and that would be rated M after the next substantial update that it gets, because it has loot boxes in it, effectively. And I just want to like point out the layers of abstraction here, that Pokemon Go doesn't really have loot boxes, in that like the only random element thing that there is that you can hatch eggs and get random Pokemon out of those eggs. But you can pay for incubators to hatch more eggs more quickly, and that is considered still a loot box, so that would be rated M. But Star Wars Outlaws, which is rated M currently, would be rated R18 when any substantial update comes to it, and given that there is DLC coming for it, it probably will be rated R after that happens.
I mean, this story expansions, they're not gameplay modifiers as far as we know, so I don't think story expansions would count.
Story expansions are considered substantial updates under the thing. So like anything that substantially adds or changes the game, adds to or changes the game, is considered a substantial update under this. So
well, technically, any patch to any game is considered an update based on that terminology.
Yeah, pretty much. And developers are supposed to declare to the government that they have had a substantial update and may require re-rating. Now, most of the time, games are rated in such a way that, like, they won't need to be re-rated if they get major updates. But like we have seen in the past, where games have had more intense stuff released through expansions and have had to be re-rated because of it. But all that aside, I think we're all in agreement here that this is just completely fucking backwards. The fact that real money gambling through loot boxes only attracts a recommended age of 15, but simulated gambling means an automatic 18 plus is just stupid.
I mean,
yeah,
it seems
backwards.
Yeah, we all had like a collective aneurysm in our group chat about this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know who looked at this law and was like, "Yep, that's good, totally." Like, what?
So just to clarify, it's not law though, right? It's just
is law in
classification.
Well, I mean, classification is law. It's one of those weird laws where, like, basically the law says whatever the classification board says is law.
Okay.
So it's not written into legislation, but the classification board, through the governors
have powers to
each
enforce
state,
the change, but like
yes,
it's not, yeah, but like they're not, like Parliament's not passing an act on this. They've already passed an act years ago, and ACB has powers to redefine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just so silly, right? Like, it's one of those moments where like the people in charge here, like, I understand the intention behind it. The intention is good. I get it. They're trying to combat the attention on gambling that young people are increasingly getting. Like, Australia is currently reckoning with a huge like gambling advertising issue, right? Just gambling in general, right? Like the New South Wales gambling, whatever, like organized. Like, the industry, that's what word I'm looking for. The industry in New South Wales is like one of the largest in the world for gambling. It's insane, absolutely insane. Like per capita, by comparison to other cities in the world or states, like New South Wales is like one of the biggest, which is just absolutely crazy. And then we have so many problems with like gambling ads, etc., on sports games, which isn't, terrible if you're a properly functioning adult or like someone who isn't susceptible to habitual gambling or anything like that. But the problem with putting them in sports is that a lot of kids watch sports, right? That's the main issue that they have here. And then I get a lot of gambling ads, for example, on like bloody TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't even watch sports, so I'm not even the target demo anyway. So I understand the intention behind it. The intention is good, but it's just another case of like the Australian government just kind of like stepping in where in a space that they don't fully understand, or at least haven't taken thought into the ripple effects of how it affects so many other things. Like it goes back to, what was it, like 10 years ago or something like that, when before we had like a proper R18 classification, they just like rated a lot of M-rated games as R18 or something like that anyway, or something along those lines, and it was basically locking out potential games from coming in Australia. It's like, no, that's not the issue. Like the violent games are already here. We've already got them. They're rated MA. The issue is that we don't have a proper definition for an R18 game, so things aren't rated accordingly. And like now it's just kind of like trying to shoehorn extra stuff to fit within that sort of space, and it's just going to upend a whole, or potentially upend like a whole lot of, you know, upcoming games, currently released games that are aimed for children, that have smaller mechanics, but, you know, somewhat do prey on people who are vulnerable to gambling. Like, yeah, like I said, I understand the intention behind it, but it's just another absolute spanner in the works.
Yeah.
So dumb. So dumb.
The classification system has quite a few of these problems at this point. Just like the drugs issue for R18, like any type of like real world positive usage of drugs in a game just gets instantly refused classification, which is just like, I get it. Like I understand what they're trying to do, and the intent is there, but it isn't realistic. Like games are definitely going to simulate that stuff, and it's just really stupid to not have nuance.
It's just so heavy-handed and doesn't seem particularly reasonable. Like it doesn't seem like it's made with any sort of consultation with like the industries or the people that it directly affects. Like it's just like, no, we're gonna do this, and then it's just like la 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 la, like just fingers in the ears kind of thing. I think
what I was saying, that I think this one's particularly egregious because like if you just talk to any reasonable human, like looking at that, I would say the vast majority would be like, that doesn't make sense. It's the wrong way around. And I just don't really understand how they got to that conclusion.
But also another concern with this is that like it was proposed like last year, right? I don't remember seeing anything about this. And then when Ollie shared the link in the group chat, I'm like, where's the media coverage on this? Like I'm not expecting this to be on like Channel 9 News or anything, but I was expecting at least like some of the like gaming publications who actually like give a crap to have written something about this. I think Kotaku had something, but
I think I remember reading about this, like an inquiry being done into this. But then like I heard about the inquiry and then I saw this get done and I was like, what? Wait, what happened here?
Yeah, exactly. What was the discussion? Like what the hell? And then like now I'm looking now and I'm only seeing a couple of articles like coming out after the fact. It's like, oh, like great job informing the public, guys. Like we can't even complain or not that I was going to do anything anyway because I'm lazy as hell, but still most of us are. Most gamers.
The thing is, right, like developers like during the public consultation process, there were developers that submitted to it, but like the thing that we ended up with is exactly the same as the proposal that they put forward last year, and I don't think any amount of public pressure would have changed that. I think this is something that the government wanted to do to, you know, get a win, and nothing we say could have changed that.
I'm not even saying a change could have been made, but like no, like it wasn't wider news until it happened, and that is a problem to me. Yeah. That is a problem when it comes to law change.
Look, I understand
after the fact.
I understand getting consultation from the gaming industry on this, like a little bit, but I feel like it's like asking a drug dealer what drug law should be.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this only helps game developers that have these exploitative mechanics in games by doing this. Like, don't ask game developers and games companies. Ask the people it affects. That's who you should be asking. And I just feel like that definitely didn't happen. Yeah, or if it did, no one knew about it. Like I was saying.
Like I get that it's locking out children, but also like children aren't the ones with credit cards. So, like they're not the ones who are like. There are some who have access to their parents' credit cards through like, you know, online purchases on their phones and things like that. And at that point, it's bad parenting. But like, you know, playing like an M-rated game or something like that, like I don't know, Warzone or something, and then having your credit card attached to that or your PSN account, and then just like splurging to get all the like, you know, low charts, like high value DLC. That doesn't fix the problem at all. It's not.
Yeah.
To me,
like,
though,
a lot of this is. Sorry, a lot of this has always been an education problem, and I feel like as hashtag gamers get older, and then they grew up with this type of stuff, you know, they grew up, you know, paying for DLC and all that type of jazz. Hopefully, as parents, they'll be more aware if they have children of what their children are doing. Hopefully, but yeah, the fact that, you know, you hear about stories all the time of, you know, kids spending $1,000 buying coins for some game or whatever. It's just, it happens constantly.
There's also like something Angelo brought up with like all the gambling ads. I see them all the time. Oh, bet this weekend on this sport. It's like, fuck off. It's like, I've told Facebook 1,000 times I'm not interested in this. You know, you go in, you have to go like 9 layers down to say, you know, does this interest you? No, and you turn it off, and they still send the ads through. It's like, cool. You know, you don't want people playing a game where there's simulated gambling, but you're okay with the gaming industry throwing ads up on TikTok and Instagram and everywhere else promoting the fact that you can give them money directly, but you can't do it now as a 15-year-old in a video game with fake money. Like, they've gone one way, which again, I get blocking kids gambling, I get that, but it's like, if you're going to block kids having access to fake gambling, block real gambling. Don't pick one little niche section and think you're safe. That's not how this is supposed to work. And they've gone the wrong way.
And I think as well, like, it's especially egregious because this came in the same week that the government announced that it was backtracking on plans to address actual gambling ads in sports games. There were plans that they brought to the election saying, like, I don't want to get too political on this, but like we do sometimes anyway. But like they brought a plan to the election saying that they were going to tackle gambling ads during sports games, limit the amount and what companies are allowed to say. And then they just said, yeah, we're not going to do that because free TV wouldn't survive otherwise. And like, first of all, like,
let it die.
Let it die. At this point, like, genuinely, like, if it can't survive without exploiting people, it doesn't deserve to survive.
Well, so the issue, I get what you're saying, but again, I've listened to a lot of news podcasts about this issue as well, and the big problem there is that the betting agencies, like, they're the ones who are pumping like the most significant amount of money into free to air TV, and while that doesn't really apply, like, free to air TV isn't so relevant in metropolitan areas, like, it's highly reliant in rural areas. That's the issue, and we're already facing a huge crisis with rural news stations and newspapers closing down because of basically the Murdoch monopoly that's currently happening and squeezing smaller publications out. And then, you know, when we get rid of like community TV and rural TV, then those places just don't have as greater access to news and things like that, because, you know, some of them live very remotely and don't have the internet, etc., etc. So
I was literally just about to say, like, this more sounds like an internet issue than anything else.
Sure.
If but we just have like good internet connectivity to everyone, you solve a lot of this problem.
But it doesn't invalidate what you guys are saying though, because, like, yes, like, the problem is with the gambling industry. That is the issue there. But the problem is that the government somewhat has its hands tied because the gambling industry has such a strong hold on free-to-air TV, and it's entirely reliant on it.
But like, this is like a classic, like,
it's a capitalism problem. Again, it's
100%. It's one of those things where, like, this started happening, and then it became overwhelming, and then regulation didn't happen. It's exactly like what happened with Uber and like Didi and all that type of stuff. These guys came in, they were disruptive.
It's happening with SpaceX
and then
Elon Musk. He's a piece of shit. The government relies on him for space contracts.
Totally. And like, so now Uber and Didi and all those types of guys are here, and they've completely taken over. And there's no way, quote unquote, to solve this problem now, because like the reliance that people have on these ride sharing apps is wild. And if you were to destroy them, you would inconvenience millions of people.
This is me getting too political, but this is the problem.
Here we go.
This is the problem with conservative governments being like, yep, free market, it's completely fine, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh god, no, we've got all these tech people in charge, and like now they're taking all of our data, and now, like, you know, I'm losing money to all these scams and things like that. We need more laws to kind of protect us. It's like, well, all of this happened decades ago.
Yeah.
If anyone listening to this podcast ever thought that anyone on this podcast was a conservative, well, we have some news for you.
Honestly, like the thing with gambling ads and free-to-air TV is that, like, yes, currently gambling is like the biggest, like by far the biggest contributor towards advertising dollars on free-to-air TV, but like that was also true of alcohol before we restricted ads on free-to-air TV, and that was also true of cigarettes before we restricted ads on free-to-air TV, and we still did both of those things. So like I don't buy the argument that like all of these free-to-air stations are just going to die overnight if they don't have gambling money. There will be something else that fills the gap. It's probably going to be like cryptocurrency bullshit, given it's 2024.
I do love the drinking industry. They'll throw out ads about drinking bourbon with your mates, and, you know, having a good weekend, and at the end they go, drink responsibly. It's like that absolves them of all their issues. It's like we need that for the gaming industry. Game responsibly, and you're done. You put that at the end of anything, and you're 100% safe.
There's a potentially damaging grab there from you, Luke. I love the drinking industry.
I'll bring this up because I think it's quite interesting. In the States, in California, a law was passed or raised and brought in and signed into law about game companies not being able to sell games to consumers that are reliant on servers. So a game like Fortnite, for example, not that you buy that, but you know that's what I'm talking about. So if you were to buy Fortnite, you don't actually. They now have to disclaim that you don't own that game because it's reliant on servers, and when the servers go offline, you can't play the game. The Crew.
I don't even think it's about server reliability. I think it's literally just about digital games. Like, if you don't, you own.
Yeah, so it actually has come out. Like, there was clarification sought from Stephen Totillo, who used to work at Kotaku and now is an independent journalist. He actually reached out to the legislators that created this law, and it will apply to all digital purchases. So if you buy something on like PSN or whatever, on like the PlayStation Network, on your PS5, it will have a disclaimer saying that you do not own this because the servers could go down, and that just means you'll lose it, and you have to agree to that. And I think that like that's a good thing because it gets people thinking about digital availability. It won't change how many people are buying it, but I think it brings it to the forefront of the conversation.
But my point bringing that up is that like that's a law that doesn't impact anyone, because it's like, cool, you're basically just being told this is here. Something like this with the classification stuff. Yes, we have our little color-coded boxes on the front, but I used to work at EB Games, and the number of kids that I had coming in trying to buy San Andreas when that came out, and we'd go, it's like a 10-year-old kid, and, oh, I want San Andreas. It's like, okay, where's your parents? Because we were not allowed to sell it. And this was before hot coffee, right? This is before that whole debacle. So the number of times we would have to say to the parents, do you know that this game contains these things? It says it on the box. And I didn't know that. It's like, yeah, that's what the rating's for. The number of times we had to do that, it's like, so it's not an issue with the fact that the game has these mechanics and kids see them. It's the fact that parents aren't aware of what their kids are doing. And now, I'll say it this way, we're being punished because there are kids who are being let loose and parents aren't overseeing and being responsible parents.
Yeah, I think that's definitely changing, though. I think that's the point I was trying to make before. As the age of parents, like, you know, not the age of parents, as the people who, you know, grew up gaming get older, like, they're going to be more aware of these things. Like, we experienced that as kids because, like, gaming was quote unquote new. As well as like classifications in general for games, like, our parents just didn't know shit, like, at all. And I feel like that's just changing over time.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, like, we can say like, yeah, it's bad parents, and like, yeah, it absolutely is. Like, there's a lack of education, both for parents and for children of those parents as well. Like, there needs to be more education around this stuff. But like, I think the games industry has a duty to reduce the amount of harm that it does, and like, these laws don't force that duty. Instead, it's just like, it punishes games that shouldn't really be affected by it. Like nobody in their right mind would look at Pokemon Red and Blue with its like game corner and be like, yeah, that should be restricted to 18-year-olds. Nobody ever would say that. It's just the most ridiculous argument I've ever seen. Like, I think games that have loot boxes are far more damaging, because like that's not just simulated gambling, that is gambling.
Yeah.
Except you don't get anything in return apart from a digital item, and like that's just messed up, right? Like that should not be something that somebody who is 15 recommended, but you know, any age should be able to do. Like that we should not be essentially teaching kids to gamble.
You know what we need?
With real money.
You know what we need,
that's
Ollie?
what we're doing.
We need Harold. We need to shove Harold around every school in Australia and have Harold explain to kids about video games.
Healthy Harold, the gaming giraffe.
That's
Hell
it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
exactly
not Harold.
what we
Maybe he can get some like edgy, you know, cousin or something to come in. But that's what
Poochie the dog from The Simpsons?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. Like, this is just completely backwards. It should be loot boxes that are R-rated.
Yeah.
Like, it should not be simulated gambling. I think there should be restrictions on simulated gambling. If if this was exactly reversed, right? If it was M-rated for any simulated gambling and R-rated for loot boxes, we would all be saying, "Well done, that's such a great law."
Yeah.
Like, because that makes sense, right? Like,
or at least some
it
sort
doesn't
of,
make sense.
some sort of like enforcement for digital storefronts to explicitly say, like, I know they have like in-app purchases, but like if you're doing like you know, a gambling simulated thing like loot boxes, like is it an in-game purchase or is it straight up like, you know, exchange money for chance type of thing? Like it's a
Yeah, I
completely
can't remember.
different sort of
There's
space.
some country in Europe, one of the Scandinavian countries, I think maybe, that has that. If you're purchasing loot boxes for a game, they explicitly tell you the chances. Like it has to be there. Like it gives you all the percentages and all that type of jazz.
That's the Benelux region, so Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. They also have a very harsh ban on loot boxes in general, in that like, unless like you can't exploit like FOMO, so like you can't have limited banners or whatever that like you can only get these characters during this time, and if you miss out, you won't get them, so you better spend a whole bunch of money, and they require you to disclose the odds clearly, and that's something that a lot of games don't do, is that like you have to go through menus and menus and read like tiny little text to find out what the odds are, and as a result of that, a lot of the games that have loot boxes like Genshin Impact, Pokemon Unite soon is getting banned there, like they end up getting banned, and like that's probably good. Like let's be real, like Nintendo's games even got banned, like a Mario Kart Tour, because that had loot boxes, was banned in the Benelux region, and like good, because no company, Nintendo included, should be able to have deceptive practices that exploit FOMO and encourage people to gamble, and that's exactly what these games do. Like FIFA is the worst of it.
Oh man.
FIFA is like, so like I haven't really like engaged with FIFA at all, but like our regular FIFA person was away at work, so I had to do some coverage on FIFA, and particularly about FIFA Ultimate Team, and it's the first time I really looked into how that works, and it's just like one of the largest gambling economies in the world. Like it's just ridiculous. People spend billions of dollars on these digital players, and that's how you play the game. Like that is the default game mode for most FIFA players. Is
they don't actually
FIFA Ultimate
play
Team.
the main game itself. They only play that. I will point out too, the whole microtransaction industry started at EA with FIFA back in the day, and it was the brainchild of John Riccatello, the same dipshit who said, "Oh, we're going to retroactively in Unity make everyone pay for every time a game's installed," before he was fired. So the guy who thought that was a good idea is also the prick that's now doing this stuff. So
There was that.
There should be.
There was that report a few years ago that a whole 25% of EA's revenue was from Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
That's just
And
bonkers.
That's across all of their games. And like when you consider that like they put out a new game every year that you have to pay $100 for, and people buy that because they want the new Ultimate Team stuff. And then they spend a bunch of time and money on FIFA Ultimate Team packs and all of that stuff. Like it's horrendous. And like they're like, why is that not being addressed? But like, you know, a slot machine in Pokemon Red is like, it's just wrong. It's completely the wrong way to go about it.
It's so bizarre. The thing that confuses me the most about this is that the people who do work in classification at the ACB, a lot of them like are very game literate. They're people who actually understand video games really quite well. And I'm sure like they're not the ones who are straight up saying that we need to ban children from these games or anything like that. But somehow it goes from those people who are very game literate to the people who actually like put this forward to government. And somewhere along that chain, like there's just this weird sort of I don't even know what kind of metaphor I'm looking for here, but like the messages seems to get mixed up and we end up in just more difficult positions than we should be.
It's telephone. You know, the game as kids, you know, you have one person at the end say something, and by the time you get to the end, it's completely different. It's literally sort of that, but the government version of telephone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if these people. I don't know if like the people who are actually rating the games think like us necessarily. I'm just saying that like that some of the people who actually like classify the games and then through to government, somewhere along that chain, there is a muddle up that makes things more difficult than it needs to be, and it's just so strange to me that happens.
Well, like part of the problem as well is just the process through which changes are made, and because you have to not only agree to it at the classification board, and have the federal government agree to it, but it needs to be agreed to by every single state and territory as well. And that's just such a high bar to reach, which is why nothing ever changes, and when it does, it's usually negative.
Why it took so long to get R18 here in Australia.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael Atkinson, South Australian.
And like,
I will also, I love pointing this fact out. The very first R18 rated game in Australia was Nintendo's.
Yep. It sure was.
They did Ninja Gaiden on Wii U.
Anyway, let's talk about the games that we're playing. We need to move on. Otherwise, we're going to be here complaining about the government for the next 3 years. So I'll go first. I played The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I did a review for that on Vookcast. It is a very, very, very good game. Absolutely love it. Shame about the performance issues, but that's Nintendo. I feel like every Nintendo game now you just have to say, oh, well, shame about the performance issues, because like it's just not going to get better until we have new hardware.
Now about Nintendo? Oh, gee.
I was saying that
every Nintendo release.
Literally day one when I played Snake Pass on Switch, I was like, well, this is not good.
The issue with Nintendo is their eyes are just a little bit too big for their stomach. They make games that are just slightly more demanding than their system can achieve. It's always been that way.
Also, because the embargo will be up by the time this gets uploaded, I've been playing Metaphor ReFantasio, the new game from the people who made Persona 5, 4, and 3.
How is Persona 6?
Very good. It is Persona 6. I can tell you that with absolute certainty, is that like I do not believe for a second that this game did not start development as Persona 6 and get rebadged halfway through, because it feels exactly like a Persona game.
The title popped up 5 years ago or something, not long after Persona 5 first came out, that they were working on a new game called Metaphor. I think it was Project Metaphor at the time, or Project ReFantasio. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely been floating around for quite a while.
Yeah, but yeah, it is very good, and it is a Persona game, but it's not like 150 hours like Persona 5 was, so that's a really nice change of pace.
Does it still go like day by day throughout a school year and you make friends and stuff?
I mean, there's no school because it's like an ancient, well, not ancient, it's like a medieval
I literally know
times
nothing about this game except that it has a dumb name.
Yeah, so it's basically like Persona, but in medieval times.
Okay.
Basically like just on the turn of industrialization.
Okay.
You want to know something that's really dumb about this game, Angelo? Not apart from the name? For some bizarre reason, they sponsored for one weekend a racing F1 team in the Singapore Grand Prix.
They did. Okay. They put characters from the game onto the cars, which was very funny.
They waifued an F1 car for this game.
They waifued an F1 car. That's
they did.
Sentence.
They put a what? Yeah. To answer your question, it does go day by day. You have to like.
They waifued an F1 car. I want that as a t-shirt. That's a brilliant sentence.
That's going to be the title of this episode. They waifu in F1
100%. That's an amazing title.
I love that so much.
Yeah, to answer your question, yes, it does go day by day. There's a calendar. You have a deadline for specific tasks, and you have like 2 things that you can do each day. And you know, it's a Persona game. You can hang out with your teammates and other random NPCs that you meet and get stronger. And
do you go to a weird like
shit.
parallel world?
No, but you do go to dungeons. There's like discrete dungeons throughout the world. So yeah, yeah. But that is very good. Michael, what have you been playing?
I've continued to play Hell Let Loose because Gungo Pew Pew make dopamine up. And also the other dopamine game that is I'm currently addicted to is Satisfactory. I've been playing with a friend, and I was quite literally playing to 3 a.m. And I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to do this podcast, so I've had zero sleep.
That's why you were chugging a Red Bull.
Yeah, it's literally why I was chugging a Red Bull. Satisfactory is amazing. If you enjoy those types of like factory building games and, you know, just thinking about ratios and doing a shit ton of maths, Satisfactory is for you.
It just got its 1.0 update, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly what we're playing. It's 1.0. I'm playing with a friend because you can play multiplayer, and it's just it's incredibly fun to play. Just fun building the factories, and like there's a ton of exploration to do in the game as well to find a ton of stuff. There is weirdly like a story to the game, sort of. It's really, really cool. If you like I said, if you enjoy it, highly recommend. If you're a fan of Factorio, I've no doubt you've heard of Satisfactory. It's Factorio in 3D.
And chocolate factory themed one coming as well, not by the same people, just another one of these factory games.
Yeah,
based on a chocolate factory. It's a bit of a weird. There's like an explosion of factory-based games all of a sudden.
I think the Satisfactory team has just done an incredible job on just one of the world in general, but just the optimization is wild. Like and the Factorio guys did the same thing. The fact you can have these gigantic factories with a bajillion moving items everywhere. And, you know, all these things going on. The game runs super well. Like, super, super well.
Is it like a first-person factory sim?
Yeah,
game?
you play it in first person.
Oh my god, I just saw it with like 1,000 pieces moving everywhere, and my brain just... Yeah,
totally. It's 100% amazing. Like, it obviously plays a bit differently from Factorio, because you have a different perspective. Factorio, I think, is easier to build stuff because you're just looking at a 2D plane and you like it's third person view. You can see like the entire area. Whereas like when you're building in Satisfactory, you're in the first person view. At least for the beginning. You're in first person view always, but you're building things like by hand in the first person view, which, you know, is a little bit restrictive, but, you know, it makes you think about the design of things. But then later in the game, like where we're at now, you have like a blueprint maker. So you make a blueprint. You make like a standard like factory for something, right? You make a blueprint of it, and then you just paste the blueprint, and it just builds the entire thing like in front of you, and you can just like chain on blueprints of things. It's beautiful.
All right, Matt. All right,
it's really, really good.
You've convinced me.
All right, Luke, what have you been playing?
I also played Echoes of Wisdom for review. I liked it. It was fine. I 2 things. One, I don't know why like the whole Zelda thing. It's like I get why they made it a Zelda, but it's like I wanted more from her. You know, given that she's a princess, I was expecting maybe a little, talking, but for whatever reason she goes mute all of a sudden. I did like how they made, how they said Link was mute. Like they actually gave a canonical story reason for why that Link didn't speak, which is cool. But yeah, there's too many goddamn echoes, and that menu is just absolutely horrible.
The menu is very unwieldy.
Played through Epic Mickey for review, the rebrushed version of it. I like the original Wii release. This was a fine version of it, so I'm happy with that.
So I also played this. I forgot to mention. I just don't understand why it exists, right? Like, why did they do a full ground-up remake and then just like make it essentially just one for one the same game but prettier? It's like, well, could you not just do like asset swaps on the original game? Like, why is this a remake? They even have bits where it's like, oh, we've done the fucking Wii pointer with the right analog stick. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, why did you just recreate this one for one?
Asking why something exists is the most brutal feedback. Like,
I don't understand why this was a remake and not a remaster. Like, I've been generally pretty down on like remakes that should have been remasters, but this one in particular, they like made the controls a little bit better, not drastically, but a little bit better.
Yeah.
They made the camera heaps better, but that could have happened in the original one as well. And then it's like, well, like everything else is like, it's the same.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Everything they fixed in it, I'm happy with. But yeah, when they threw in the Wii pointer sections, like you lock to a 2D plane and you've got an on-screen cursor all the time, and I'm like, why? The whole reason that was
you're
in
not
the
on the
Wii is because you were
to.
on the Wii. So it made no sense to me, but no, that's what it is.
Yep. Continue.
I played through the Shattered Space DLC for Starfield. That's fine. I'm giving it a 7.5. It's like if you like Starfield,
it's a fine 2.5 hours of gameplay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on in there in terms of like the story and stuff, but it's like the problem with the Starfield world is because everything was barren. Unless you go to like a super dense jungle planet going forward, everything's going to look the same because you're on another planet. It's only been colonized for 150 years. And the one that I want to talk about that I've played through was Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports, and I knew it was going to be bad because it's from Game Mill, and Game Mill makes shit games. They did the King Kong game recently, like the one that came out last year. And I honestly, so the core sport, so like when you're playing tennis or golf or whatever, the core sport is really solid. Like it's not going, like if you're playing basketball here, it's not going to compete against the 2K NBA series, but it's still solid. The problem is the AI, and I shared a video in the Slack. The AI is just, it's either incredibly smart or dumb as dog shit, and there's no in between. I was playing tennis, and I was playing against Roadrunner, and Roadrunner's running back and forth hitting the ball. How the Roadrunner is holding a tennis racket, we will leave for another day. But it's running back and forth hitting it, and then all of a sudden it just stops. Not like reaches and misses. It just stops dead in the middle of the court, and the ball just goes bouncing past. And there was one in golf where Daffy hit it, went way off course, and the next time literally lines up to the perfect spot, perfect power bar thing, and it's like hole goes straight into the thing. It's like, okay, just both sides of it just makes no sense. So if you're playing with friends, like complete multiplayer, it'll be fine. But if you're playing with the AI in any way, shape, or form, prepare to get schooled and randomly because it's just broken.
Angelo, what have you been playing?
I also got Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and it arrived a couple of days after it came out because I got it on Amazon, but it's just been sitting on my shelf because I'm a big dummy, and I, for whatever reason, the last few years have gotten into my head that I cannot move onto a newest entry in a series without having finished the ones before it. So I keep getting myself stuck in this loop, so I'm adamantly trying to get myself to get through Tears of the Kingdom. Not that I'm fighting with the game to really play through it. It's just because I've kind of just shifted away from a lot of big open world games, despite the fact that I really love this game. And whenever I open it, I'm really happy playing it. But then when I'm away from it, I'm just like, gosh, it's a bit exhaustive having to actually find things that I'm trying to find and then navigate a massive open world, etc., etc. But I am finally getting back into that a bit more now. So I'm really enjoying that. That all said, I am also getting back into Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, just because it's been time. I stepped away from that game, got my balls stomped for a good 100 hours a couple of months ago, finishing the original game, and now I'm trying to really push through the DLC now because my balls have healed at this point, so I'm ready to get stomped some more. But I also finally, after weeks of waiting and watching it bounce between China and Japan for some god knows reason, my analog pocket finally arrived. The yellow one. I'm getting a bit of a Luke moment where it's getting censored, but yeah, got my analog pocket right here. Got the yellow dandelion color. When they announced those that Game Boy Color line sort of promo thing, and Luke cost me a lot of money that week when this thing came out. When he announced it, when he sent the announcement to me. But yeah, just by comparison, I've also got the yellow Game Boy Color, my old original. And it's very similar. It's hard to see.
Honestly, when you held up the Game Boy Color, and I was like, why are you holding the pocket up again? You're talking about the Game Boy. My first thought was you were holding up the same thing because the color is nearly the same.
Yeah, it's very similar. Not quite when you look at it in real life, the yellow of the Game Boy Color is slightly tinge towards like an orange kind of skew, but yeah. And then by comparison, I also found my original Pocket Pikachu, which funnily enough, I actually got this before Pokemon was a thing in Australia, because at the old high school I went to, before I went there, one of my uncles went, and they used to get Japanese exchange students for about 3 or 4 years. They would be part of the exchange program there, where they would host Japanese exchange students. And one year there was these 2 girls that came, and as a gift to me, because like I used to hang out all the time, we used to play Mario Kart and stuff, they gave me this little Pocket Pikachu, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this seems cool. And it's the one with the clicky pedometer in there. I don't know if you can even hear that. But
I
yeah.
love that it has a belt clip.
Yeah. So that way you click it onto your belt when you go walking. But yeah,
God.
all the actual in-game text is in Japanese, so I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I'm like, what's a Pikachu? But yeah, loving the analog pocket at the moment though. It's great. Got Pokemon Fire Red in there. That's why I wanted to show it off. So I'm actually playing Fire Red, and a whole bunch of other games that I'm sure Ollie would be unhappy with me mentioning on this because they are not on the cartridge. But yeah, really happy with it at the moment. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
But was it worth the $6,000 in shipping?
It was really expensive. I didn't opt to get the dock because it literally would have added an extra like $220 just for the dock alone, and for whatever reason the shipping cost more just for the dock. So yeah, I also got the plastic case. Oops, here's my AirPods. I also got the plastic case for it as well. And as soon as I got this thing, I'm like, I'm not going to keep it in there for safekeeping. So my partner's going to make like a little crocheted pouch for me to stick it in. So
it's not designed for safekeeping. It's designed for displaying.
Yeah, the case for sure. Yeah, kind of dumb choice, but it was only like $20 American or something like that. So you know, it was only like $50 extra by conversion. But yeah, to your question though, Ollie, like this thing is goddamn expensive when you're bringing it to Australia, and the shipping, watching it being shipped was also just a nightmare. It was so dumb. It went from Los Angeles to Canada to Alaska to Shenzhen in China, then to Taiwan, then back to Shenzhen. Each time it was in Shenzhen, it was there for like 5 days on each stop. Then it finally went somewhere else and then landed in Melbourne. It was a nightmare. And then when I got the box, the actual like freight box, the box had been opened. I could tell because the sticky tape had been opened from the sides, and you could literally just like lift it up and see straight in there and see the products in there. So it had obviously been stuck in customs or something like that in China, and they rummaged around in there. I am very, very unhappy.
That's the thing, you pay so much for the shipping, and it's not fast.
Nope.
And it's not great shipping either. So like,
nope.
It's...
Thanks, UPS.
Terrible.
Anyway, happy I have it.
All right, let's move on. Well, yeah, I mean, once you have it in hand, it kind of, you know, it doesn't undo all of the nonsense that you have to go through to get there, but it helps. All right, on to a round of 20 questions. I think, Luke, you're doing it. It was supposed to be Michael, but he did not prepare for this and had like 3 hours sleep, so...
I could have if I didn't play Satisfactory to 3 a.m., but you know, priorities.
Yeah, on a daylight savings night as well, when you lose an hour.
Or I don't lose an hour.
Well, he doesn't lose an hour. WA doesn't have it.
Oh, yeah,
no.
Yeah.
We're sensible here in the West.
Wow, I wouldn't
Time
go
is
that
time.
far. But yeah, I have a game, and you can go. It's not.
Was it made in the
2010s?
2010s?
Sorry, made in the 2010s? No.
Okay.
Oh my god. Was it made in the 2000s?
Oh, he did it! He did it.
I just don't care anymore.
Yes, it was made on or after January 1st, 2000.
Oh,
thank you.
I hate you so much.
Unfortunately, that does give us a very wide range.
Yeah. Late 64, GameCube, early Wii, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance.
Nintendo DS. Yeah.
Nintendo DS, like basically the entire generation of Nintendo consoles.
Is this game in 3D?
No. So, when you say in 3D, you're talking about like Mario Galaxy 3D, or you're talking
like
about
rendered in 3D.
Yeah, I'm talking about like whether or not
polygons,
whether it has a third dimension.
That is not helping that question get answered.
All right, I cannot answer that question.
Okay, cool.
Oh, could it be like a 2D? Sorry, a DS game where it like has 3D and 2D?
Potentially, yeah. Was this game released on the DS?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so there we go.
Does this game feature recognizable Nintendo characters?
I don't believe so. No, it
Could have
does
asked
not.
if it was on that mural.
Unfortunately,
If it wasn't Zelda.
There's so many links in Mario's.
The DS library is just insanely huge.
I just realized we could even segment the timeline of the DS by asking if it was released in the DS Fat, the Lite, or the DSi eras.
You could, yeah.
We could ask that. Was this released during the DS Lite era? So just to clarify that I'm specifying that the era ends with the DSi.
Yeah.
So each era comes out ends when the next product comes.
Now Luke has to Google when the DSi came out and when the DS Lite came out.
No, he'd know. He's got this.
Then yes, it was released during the DS Lite era.
Okay, so it's not like a
Okay, so just the vast majority of games.
Can we also just talk about how great the DS Lite was? What a banger redesign.
But yeah, I know, right?
Honestly,
go on.
If it wasn't for like the hinge issues, like because all of the hinges just eventually break, like it would just be like probably like top 2 consoles for me.
Yeah.
So
although I do like the DSi matte redesign, and the screens on the DSi are incredibly good. Like, I don't know what, screen... Oh, yeah, they're using IPS screens, but, like, I don't know where they got them from, but they were just incredible.
Am I gonna need to buy
I think they were
DSi?
sourced from Sharp, which is... Sharp is really good at IPS displays.
I think I need to buy a DSi.
Yeah, I've been thinking the same lately. I was like, oh, I could get a DSi XL. That would be
I was
nice.
thinking DSi, but then I'm like, it doesn't have the Game Boy port.
I've got plenty of DSs.
Yeah,
I've
but-
got like 4. 2 of them work, so...
Angelo's got an analog pocket, so...
Yeah, what am I talking about? Yeah, I've got it in my pocket now. Alright, so
Alrighty.
DS era game.
DS games, oh man, there's so freaking many. Was this game developed in Japan?
No.
Was this game developed in America? USA?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
I think you meant USA when you said America.
I just remembered that South America and Canada also exist, so...
Trying to think of games that had 2D and 3D elements.
I mean, most DS games.
Yeah.
Well, Scribblenauts popped in my head, and then Michael reminded me of the 3D stuff, so...
It had such an explosive appearance and then just vanished just as quick.
Scribblenauts, yeah, they really went gung-ho with that for a good 3 or 4 years. There were so many games in that series.
It's a cool concept.
Yeah, it really was. Did this game feature multiplayer?
Don't did? Let me double check. It does.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Does this...
I'm guessing something you wouldn't traditionally think of as a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
Does this
No,
game feature combat?
No.
So it's not Spore.
How many questions is that, Luke?
That was 9 questions. You've got 10 questions and a guess remaining.
Okay, it's not bad.
Get a genre or developer, maybe?
Yeah. Was this a puzzle game?
No.
Okay.
Was this like a sport-related game of some kind?
Huh.
Was this like a music or rhythm game?
Yes.
Ooh.
All right, this is my totally off base. This is a Luke game. This is Guitar Hero.
Oh, Guitar Hero for the DS was pretty good.
Yeah. Does this game have a peripheral?
Yes.
Oh man, if I bang this is gonna be so good.
Dude, how good was Guitar Hero on the DS? Like, it had no life being as good as it was.
Also, I don't know if you guys ever played Rock Band on PSP. That was also a banger.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It was like a lane switching rhythm game. It was really, really good.
Yeah, right. Could ask if this game has licensed. If it's a licensed game, because this is technically a licensed game. But you could ask if it has licensed music.
Is it a licensed game? It's a game that has licenses.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like it's full of licensed properties. So I guess.
Yeah. I guess I wouldn't call it a licensed game.
Yeah.
Trying to think of like a clever way to.
Just ask if it's part of the Guitar Hero series.
Yeah, I guess. I always try to not bar the guess, not use questions that have the name of the game in it. I feel like that's almost cheating.
Yeah.
I know it's not, but it's the way I feel.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll do it. Is this part of the Guitar Hero series?
No.
Oh, damn it.
Has a
Interesting. Oh man. Okay.
Has a peripheral and it's a rhythm game, but it's not Guitar Hero. It's on the DS.
Is this some bullshit where it's actually it was part of the Band Hero series? I'm gonna be so mad.
Yeah.
Or if it's gonna be that it has a specific stylus that it came with, I'm gonna be even madder.
I know the Rock Band games also came out on DS. I don't know if they had a peripheral though.
I can't recall.
I think, did they? I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, no, definitely. But I don't know if, sorry, they came out, I just don't know if they had a peripheral.
Yeah. Alright. What else could it be in that case?
Nothing.
Yeah, I know, right? What is another game that had a peripheral? That was a rhythm game. And it was developed in the USA. Rhythm Heaven wasn't the US, right? That was Nintendo. Or
yeah, also doesn't have a peripheral as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, exactly. So, God damn. I'll just ask.
I guess. Oh my god, my brain is freaking out. 3 hours sleep. The GBA Rumble cartridge that you could plug into the DS, which would have to be used with the DS Lite because the DSi didn't have a Game Boy port.
Yeah.
Right.
So what rhythm game used that? I don't know.
Well, so Guitar Hero did. It didn't have a Rumble thing, but you had that peripheral that went into the Game Boy cartridge.
Yeah, but which ones used the Rumble cartridge? I don't think any did.
No,
none of them would have. None of the Guitar Hero games would have.
No.
Does this game use the Rumble cartridge?
No.
Okay, well, there you go. Problem solved.
I just want to ask what the peripheral was, but he's not going to tell us.
I just want the answer. He's not going to tell us.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm struggling to think.
Yeah.
Of a peripheral here. I was so set on the Guitar Hero game just being it.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna call the police.
How many guesses do we have left? How many questions?
4 questions and a guess.
I just gotta burn through those ones. I don't think we've got this one, guys.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the meta question now, because if it is Band Hero, I'm gonna be really annoyed, but also like it will eliminate that or confirm it.
Band Hero, Rock Band.
No, Band Hero.
Yeah,
did Band Hero?
Did Band Hero have a game?
Yeah.
Oh.
It did. It came with like this silly like rubber skin that you put over the
I just want to put it
fucking
out there. If it is Band Hero and you got asked that question, I 100% think that is part of the Guitar Hero franchise. Like straight up. I'm just putting it out there right now. But go.
Okay. Have we mentioned the game?
Yes.
It's Band Hero. It's fucking Band Hero.
Get absolutely banned if this is Band Hero. I'm saying this right now. They are part of the same franchise.
I mean, I guess we asked, was it a Rock Band game? Sorry, a Guitar Hero game. Not was it part of the series?
Wait, what was the actual question? Did I ask if it was a Guitar Hero game?
I think
Or did
I think you
thought it was
a Guitar Hero
I think you asked if it was part of the Guitar Hero series, but Band Hero is
okay.
technically a distinct series.
Yeah, look.
Luke loves his technicalities.
Oh my god.
He definitely loves his technicalities. It's yours, Ollie. Just go for it.
I don't want to guess just yet. Can you?
I mean, you can just ask him as part of the Band Hero franchise. Like, don't just nail it down.
Can ask if I had that rubber skin.
Yeah, does this have a weird rubber drumming skin for it? For the DS? Does this game interact with that?
It does have a weird condom-shaped accessory for your DS Lite.
Oh my god. I don't believe we almost got like taken out by like getting pigeonholed into like this singular like lane.
All right.
I want to say I'm proud of myself though for immediately thinking some crazy bullshit that Luke would do.
Yeah.
Here's yours, Ollie.
All right.
Yeah, go for it. But is there more than one Band Hero game? Just putting it out there.
That can't be right.
I have no idea.
That can't be.
I'm more amazed that it came out during the DS Lite era. That, like in my brain, I feel like that's like Band Hero is later. But yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
You know, we have
sorry,
we have questions to spare if you would want to like double confirm.
No, I mean I can't really be anything else.
All right, go for it.
I mean, if we're wrong, then we're wrong, and that would be hilarious.
Is there a DJ Hero for DS?
Oh, jeez!
Imagine they have a tiny DS just trying to like scratch records on the tiny screen.
Go for it.
Is this game Band Hero?
Put you out of your misery. It is Band Hero.
Oh my god! Fuck you.
The reason why is because when this released, Activision reclassified the Guitar Hero series to be part of the Hero franchise. Because Guitar Hero, Band Hero, and DJ Hero are part of the Hero franchise, not the Guitar Hero series. I get why you're upset, Michael, because it spun off from it, and I understand that completely. But if you look it up, the classifications for it are that way. It released in November 2009 for the DS Lite, but it also supports the DSi, but you can only play the vocal part of the game on the DSi because the weird drum skin was not made for the DSi, it was made for the DS Lite. And there's no gameplay slot.
If it supports the DSi, surely it came out during the DSi era.
No. It came out for the DS Lite itself, but it works on the DSi. But only that one vocal function works. You can only sing in the game. You can't do any of the other modes because it was made for the DS Lite. So.
Okay, it did technically release during the DSi era, but it was a game made for DSi and was ostensibly exclusive to, DS Lite.
Yeah, right.
But it was ostensibly a DS Lite exclusive. I think we could have pigeonholed ourselves into not getting that if we considered it a DSi era game.
See, because for the DSi that released here in in April 2009.
9, I think.
Yeah. Did I say 8 or 9 for this one? 9. Okay. Sorry, I just because of the accessories, I just associated it to being a DS Lite game, not a DSi game. So. I think
it's safe to say that it's a DS Lite game and not a DSi game because you can't do 90% of the shit with the DSi.
Also, it's also safe to say that it's a Guitar Hero franchise game, but whatever.
I could have just gone with Guitar Hero, made it easy, but there's also 3 Guitar Hero games on the DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could have been like really mean and picked one of the ones.
I thought there was only the one. I didn't realize there were multiples.
I didn't. So this is really what's in my head. So I'm pulling together a feature on like all the forgotten game series from publishers. And when I was pulling through the Guitar Hero stuff, that's when I found there were 2 more Guitar Hero games on DS that I didn't know about.
Yeah, right.
Guitar Hero is not forgotten. It's just in Fortnite now.
That's Rock Band.
That's also it's Rock Band.
It's the same
clean
people
out
who
your
made
goddamn
both of them.
mouth.
Get the fuck out of here. It's the same people. The creative director on the Guitar Hero series went on to make Rock Band and then now works on Fortnite Festival. So,
and as a fan, I say Rock Band is vastly superior to Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah, of course.
I never owned a Guitar Hero game outside of the DS one, and I've always wanted to. But wow,
I have a guitar right next to me for Rock Band, so.
Alrighty. That about wraps up this episode of the Vookcast. Be sure to visit the site www.vooks.net for your Nintendo news, reviews, and everything in between. To keep up to date, follow the site on Twitter at vooks.net or jump on over to our Discord at bit.ly/VooksDiscord. You can find all of our social information and links for the stories covered in this episode in the episode notes on whatever platform you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next show.